It's 6:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. The sun is going down, the traffic is heavy, and you are sitting in a line of cars that wraps around a building painted bright orange. You can see the brake lights glowing red in front of you, and you can smell that specific mix of exhaust fumes and frying oil coming through the vents. This wasn't the plan this morning. This morning there was chicken thawing in the fridge. This morning there was an idea of being healthy and responsible. But then the meetings ran long. The emails piled up, and the mental energy required to chop an onion felt like climbing a mountain. So you're here. You tell yourself, I had a hard day. I deserve this. It's just easier. And that feels true in the moment. You order for the family or just yourself, and you tap the card. That's $42. It doesn't feel like $42. It feels like relief. It feels like buying back 30 minutes of your life. But here's the thing I started noticing about myself when I was sitting in those lines. I wasn't just there on the bad days. I was there on the boring days too. I was finding reasons to be too tired almost every Tuesday and Thursday. If you do that $42 trip just twice a week, that is over $330 a month. That is $4,000 a year. $4,000 of post-tax money traded for lukewarm fries and the feeling of not having to do dishes. When I finally looked at that number on my own statement, it made me feel sick. I realized I wasn't buying food. I was paying a tiredness tax. I was paying $4,000 a year for the privilege of being exhausted. The problem is that human brains are really, really good at storytelling, especially when we're holding a debit card. We don't look at that $4,000 and see a habit. We break it down into tiny, isolated incidents that we label exceptions. We tell ourselves, I'm usually good with money, but just this once I'll buy the lunch because I forgot mine, or it's my friend's birthday, or it's been a rough week. I used to do this with Fridays. In my head, Friday was a celebration for surviving the work week. So I was allowed to go out and drop $18 on a mediocre burger and a drink. It was my reward. But then I started noticing that I also had rewards for Mondays, because Mondays are hard, and exceptions for Wednesdays, because that's when I met up with a friend. If you have 5 exceptions a week, that's not an exception anymore. That is just your lifestyle. We use the phrase just this once to blind ourselves to the math. It's a defense mechanism. If we admitted that these weren't emergencies, but actually choices we were making every single day, we'd have to admit that we are the ones leaking our own financial security. It is much more comfortable to believe that life just keeps happening to us, costing us $20 at a time, than to admit we are actively choosing to stay stuck because we like the burger more than we like the savings. There is another type of payment I see on my bank statement that hurts a little more than the others because it's not really about the product. It's about who I wish I was. I call it the aspiration tax. It's the gym membership for $40 a month that I haven't swiped into since February. It's the subscription to the masterclass on photography, or the language app that promises I'll speak Spanish in 3 months. I pay these every month, not because I use them, but because canceling them feels like admitting defeat. As long as the charge hits my card, I can tell myself I'm the kind of guy who goes to the gym or learns languages. But when you do the math, that hope is expensive. I had a language app subscription running for 2 years. I opened it maybe 4 times. That cost me nearly $300. I essentially paid $300 to avoid admitting I wasn't going to learn Spanish. We aren't buying services. We are renting a better version of ourselves, and we are too proud to evict him. Then there is the upgrade treadmill, which is where my brain does its most impressive gymnastics. I remember when my phone battery started dying a little faster than usual. It was annoying, sure. A battery replacement at the mall kiosk was about $80, but my brain didn't say, go spend $80, and it whispered, you need a new phone. Suddenly I was looking at payment plans for a device that cost $1,100. I was justifying a $1,000 difference because I wanted the new camera and the shiny screen, but I framed it as a reliability issue. We do this with cars, laptops, and appliances. We look for the smallest defect to justify the biggest purchase. We actively hunt for excuses to restart the payment cycle because buying something new gives us a rush that fixing something old never does. But that rush fades in about 2 weeks, and the payments last for 36 months. I think a lot of this spending comes from a feeling of entitlement that creeps in when you have a job that drains you. I call it the I work hard tax. When I was working a job I hated, I found myself spending money specifically because I was miserable. I'd buy the $6 latte every morning, not because I loved the coffee, but because it was the only good part of my morning. I'd buy gadgets I didn't need or order takeout because I worked hard today, I shouldn't have to cook. It's a strange cycle. You work the job to make money, but the stress of the job convinces you to waste the money you just made. You end up trapped in a loop where you can't afford to quit the stressful job because you've built a lifestyle that requires that income to medicate the stress. I looked at my pay stub once and realized that the first 2 hours of every shift were just paying for the stuff I bought to make myself feel better about working the shift. There's also a cost to being polite that nobody talks about. The social friction cost. This is when you are at dinner with a group of friends and everyone is ordering appetizers and cocktails. You really only wanted a burger and water because things are tight this month. But when the bill comes, someone says, let's just split it evenly to make it easy. And you freeze. To say, I can't afford that feels shameful. It feels like a failure. So you nod, you smile, and you throw your card in the pile. You end up paying $60 for a meal that should have been $20. We pay a massive premium just to avoid 5 seconds of awkwardness. And the craziest part, I guarantee that at a table of 6 people, at least 2 others are thinking the exact same thing, terrified to speak up. We are all going broke trying to impress people who are also faking it. Then there is the specific black hole of the warehouse club or the big box store. You know the one. You walk in with a list that says laundry detergent and eggs. You grab a cart because, well, you need somewhere to put the eggs. But the aisles are designed to break you. You see a set of camping chairs on sale. You don't camp, but you might someday. You see a 5-pound jar of pretzels for $8. That's a steal, right? By the time you get to the register, the cart is full. You went in to spend $30, and the cashier says, that will be $214. You pay it because the math in your head says you got a deal on everything. But bulk buying often just leads to bulk consumption. I once bought a 20-pack of batteries because it was cheaper per unit, but I ended up just losing half of them in a drawer. If you spend $200 when you plan to spend $30, you didn't save money. You just lost control. The biggest blind spot for most of us, myself included, is the car. In America, we have normalized the idea that having a car payment is just the price of being an adult, like taxes or death. We sign up for a $600 or $700 monthly payment without blinking because we tell ourselves we need a reliable vehicle to get to work. But let's look at the numbers. $700 a month is $8,400 a year. That is a lot of money. You could drive a paid-off, slightly older car, and even if it needed $2,000 of repairs every single year, which is a lot of repairs, you would still be ahead by over $6,000. But we don't do that. We are terrified of the one day the car might not start, so we guarantee a financial loss every single month to prevent it. We pay for peace of mind, but we pay a premium that keeps us living paycheck to paycheck. Then we get home, tired from the drive in that expensive car, and we turn to our phones for the dopamine delivery. I used to browse online stores at 11 p.m., not because I needed anything, but because my brain was bored and anxious. There's a specific high you get when you click Buy Now. It feels like you accomplished something. You solved a problem. You secured a future where you own that cool jacket or that new tool, but the high peaks right then. By the time the box actually shows up 2 days later, the feeling is gone. You open it, and it's just stuff. Now you have to find a place to put it. I have a shelf in my garage full of tools I used exactly once. Each one of them represents a night where I was trying to buy a feeling of productivity instead of actually doing something. We also lie to ourselves about what constitutes an emergency. We treat predictable calendar events like shock surprises. Christmas happens on December 25th every single year. It has never moved. Yet every December, millions of us are shocked that we have to buy gifts and we put it on a credit card. The same goes for car registration or tires wearing out. Tires are designed to wear out. It is a guarantee. If you drive, you will need tires. Yet when the mechanic says you need new tires, that'll be $800 when we act like it's a tragedy. We say, I have bad luck. It's not bad luck, it's math. This is the part I didn't want to look at first. But if you don't save $50 a month for the inevitable repairs, you aren't living within your means. You're just waiting for the invoice. This blindness leads right into the pay raise trap. I remember the first time I got a decent bump in salary. I thought, finally, I can save money. But 6 months later, I looked at my checking account, and the number was exactly the same as it was before. It felt like magic, dark magic, but it wasn't. It was lifestyle creep. When you make more, you feel okay ordering the appetizers. You feel okay upgrading the internet speed. You switch from the cheap beer to the craft stuff. Expenses are like a gas. They expand to fill whatever container you put them in. Unless you consciously, painfully decide to keep living like you're broke, the money will disappear. I was making $10,000 more a year, and I had absolutely nothing to show for it, except slightly nicer dinners and a more expensive haircut. A lot of that money goes to the brand loyalty lie. We are creatures of habit. I grew up in a house that bought a specific brand of ketchup, a specific brand of paper towels, and a specific brand of pain reliever. For years, I bought the name brand ibuprofen for $12 a bottle. Then I realized the generic store brand was literally the exact same chemical formula made in the same factory for $4. That is an $8 tax on habit. It seems small. It's only $8. But apply that to everything in your cart. Cereal, trash bags, soap, spices. You are paying a 30 to 40% premium just because the packaging looks familiar. Over a decade, that is thousands of dollars paid to marketing departments who have successfully trained you to fear the generic label. And speaking of small numbers, there is the "it's only $10" leak. This is the most dangerous number in personal finance. $10 feels like zero. It feels like walking around money. So we sign up for the streaming service because it's only $10. We get the upgraded car wash. We buy the extra data storage. We grab the sandwich instead of packing leftovers. But if you have 12 of these only $10 leaks in your life, that's $120 a month. That's nearly $1,500 a year. I sat down once to cancel subscriptions and found I was paying for a music service, a video service, and a premium shipping service that I barely used. Added up, they equaled a car payment for a decent used Honda. We bleed out financially, not from giant wounds, but from 1,000 paper cuts we refuse to bandage. Sometimes we try to escape this reality with the vacation on credit. We get burned out and we say, I need a break. I need to get away. So we book a trip to Florida or Mexico. We put the flight and the hotel on the Visa card. We have a great time for 5 days. But then we come home. And not only are we back in the routine we wanted to escape, but now we have a $2,000 bill following us around. The stress of the debt undoes the relaxation of the vacation within 48 hours. It is a cruel irony. You are now working harder and stressing more to pay off the time you took off to de-stress. We are borrowing happiness from our future selves, and eventually the bill comes due with interest. We justify a lot of this with the sales math delusion. I have done this so many times. I walk past a store window or browse a site and see a jacket that is normally $100 marked down to $60. My brain says, you are saving $40, and so I buy it. I go home and tell my wife, I made $40 today. But I didn't. I spent $60. If I had walked past the store, I would have 100% of my money. Unless you were already planning to buy that specific item, that specific day, a sale isn't saving money. It is a mechanism to trigger you to spend money you were planning to keep. I have a closet full of clothes I bought because they were good deals, and every time I look at them, I realize I paid for the discount, not the shirt. We don't just copy ads, though. We copy each other. The peer group mirror is powerful. I noticed that my spending habits usually matched whoever I was hanging out with that year. If my friends were into leasing new trucks, I started looking at trucks. If my friends were into going to craft breweries every Saturday, that's where my money went. We are social animals. We want to fit in. If everyone around you is broke but acting rich, you will instinctively try to keep up. It takes a massive amount of willpower to be the one guy in the group who says, "No, I'm saving." It feels isolating. But the reality is, most of the people you are copying are just as stressed about money as you are. We are all just mirroring each other's bad habits in a circle. Then there's the cost of just being messy. The convenience fee of chaos. This is the stupid tax. It's the late fee on the utility bill because you lost the envelope. It's paying for rush shipping because you forgot to buy the birthday gift until 2 days before. It's buying a phone charger at the gas station for $20 because you can't find the one you own. I looked at my bank fees from a few years ago, overdraft fees, late fees, ATM fees, because I was too lazy to find my own bank. It added up to hundreds of dollars. That is money flushed down the toilet purely because I wasn't paying attention. Being organized is actually a money-making activity, but it's boring, so we ignore it and pay the price. I think a lot of us ignore these small leaks because we are sitting in the big win waiting room. We tell ourselves that we don't need to budget or cut back on the coffees because eventually something big will save us. I'll get that big promotion, or my crypto will take off, or I'll win the lottery. We live in a state of passive waiting. We treat our financial lives like a waiting room for a miracle. And while we wait, the water keeps rising. It is a tragic way to live, putting all your hope in a lightning strike that might never happen, while refusing to fix the leaky roof right over your head. And when we do realize we've messed up, we enter the cycle of guilt and spree. This is the hardest one to admit. You look at your credit card balance and you feel terrible. You feel anxious. You feel like a failure. And human beings are not good at sitting with those feelings. So what do we do to feel better? We treat ourselves. We say, I'm so stressed about money. I need a night out to forget about it. It sounds insane when you say it out loud, but we do it. We spend money to soothe the stress caused by spending money. It is a perfect, self-sustaining engine of misery. Breaking that loop requires sitting in the discomfort and not reaching for the wallet. And that is physically painful for a lot of us. In the end, there's no magic trick. There's no secret app or investment strategy that fixes this. It just comes down to quiet acceptance. It's about noticing. It's about sitting in that drive-through line on a Tuesday, smelling the fries, feeling the tiredness, and realizing what is actually happening. It's about catching yourself before you say just this once. It's about looking at the recurring charge and admitting you aren't going to learn Spanish this year. It's not exciting. It's not going to make you rich overnight, but there is a quiet power in just seeing the trap before you step into it. The next time you're in that line or staring at that buy now button, just pause. Ask yourself if you're buying the thing or if you're just trying to buy a moment of relief. Because the relief costs a lot more than the burger.